Sense of South Jersey with me, Kellen, for another fragrance video. So I've been wanting to do this video for a long time. It's what I call a family line video, a video where I pick one specific fragrance and I talk about several different other fragrances that are similar. And with this video, this is going to be the Paco Rabanne Pour Homme family line. So for those of you that do not know, Paco Rabanne Pour Homme came out in 1973. It's an aromatic fougere. It pretty much, I think, it was one of the fragrances that paved the way for the 70s and 80s and, you know, early 90s fougere style green fragrances, really masculine macho fragrances that switched it up maybe from like the 60s. And I've learned that Aramis was big in the 60s and a lot of fragrances were, I would say, designed after that, whereas Paco Rabanne really changed it in the early 70s in 1973 too. So this is a vintage version, not too old, probably late 90s, early 2000s, and this is the current version, Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. Again, arguably one of the greatest barbershop fragrances ever. Definitely up there. It's really good, and this is going to be a list of 7 different fragrances that I think really come close to it, or at least in the same vein, same family too. So before we jump into the list, if it's your first time here to my channel and you enjoy the type of videos that I create, make sure to subscribe to support the channel. We're on our way to 10K, less than 1,000 to go, guys. I can't thank you all enough who have even watched, but especially those who subscribe and comment and interact. You know, I appreciate that. Make sure to check out my Instagram page. It's just Sense of South Jersey. There's photos of fragrances from my collection, daily scent of the day posts, stories, and of course, news and updates on the channel, like when the next video is going to drop. And I have a TikTok. You can check that out. It's Sabro88. It's not fragrance related, but go ahead and take a look at it if you'd like. And then, of course, as I've been mentioning about my Mercari page, guys, if you want to purchase fragrances directly from my collection, stuff that's rare, stuff that's discontinued, hard to find, or just anything that I may have listed, make sure to check that out. Again, it's not through any company, it's just me making room for new fragrances because I like to get stuff in, and stuff that I don't find myself wearing, I'd rather somebody else enjoy, and there definitely are some rare ones up there, so don't ever hesitate to message me on that if you have a question or making an offer or whatever it may be. And the link to my Mercari page is going to be in the description below. But let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into this list of the Paco Rabanne family line. Okay, so the first fragrance on this list, and as you know, Paco Rabanne Pour Homme is very soapy. So this one is probably the least closest to it, but it does remind me of it. And when I first got it, I did a review on this too. If you want to check out an individual review, it's in my list of videos. But when I first got this, I'm like, oh, you know, the soapiness in there is very masculine, reminds me a little bit of Paco Rabanne, and that's Brut Black, or Brut Titan as it's known too. So very cheap fragrance, guys. I've done a number on this one. I think that the fill level is right there. It's gonna be hard to see, but it's a very clean, very soapy fragrance. Great for office work, great for work, great for daily use, very masculine. And that's what it has a lot of in common with, I think, Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. It's that fragrance, it's that fougere, that soapiness, and that's something that it reminded me of. The green harshness isn't necessarily there. That's in Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, which is something that I love. But this one, for, you know, whatever it's going to cost you, 10 bucks is an excellent alternative if it's something you want to try, if you want like a gateway to something like Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. Again, this is Brut Black. Okay, coming up next, the second fragrance on this list. It's close to Paco Rabanne Pour Homme in a few ways, and this is from the early 80s, 1981 to be exact. It's a woody aromatic from Antonio Puig, and this is Coram. So I finally started to come around on Coram, where like I'm wearing it more regularly. You can see, like, I think I'm almost done my vintage bottle, but I've definitely layered it or used it with the current formulation. So this is definitely has the roughness, it definitely has the sharpness, but it sort of goes into like more of a woodsy tobacco, whereas that is not present in Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. But the feeling is there, the vibe, the era, even though Paco Rabanne was almost 10 years before this one, but still, it's got some of those characteristics, that roughness, that scent, but this just kind of even goes further into the green woodsiness, and because of that tobacco as well, is what makes it a little bit different, but still in the same vein. And again, you can have this for even less. Paco Rabanne Pour Homme is going to be a little bit more expensive than Coram, but this is a good choice. Not my favorite, but still a classic, still needs to be recognized, and definitely in the Paco Rabanne Pour Homme family. Okay, coming in at number 3 here, this is what I consider to be the Italian Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. It's a Chypre from 1987. If I can get it out of the box for you guys. This is Basil Uomo. More citrus on top. Green dry down, which reminds me of Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, but a little bit more citrus in the opening, a little bit brighter in the opening, not as sharp. And that's more, which coincides, I should say, more in line of many Italian fragrances to have the citrus on the top like that heavy. But this one, the mossy dry down, is what reminds me of Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. It's got some soapiness in there too. Has a similar look to the bottle. Like if you look at these side by side, I'll even get the old one too. They look a little similar. And I think they were kind of, modeling it after that, but put a nice Italian twist on it with the opening. And again, I'm not really going to get into notes here. It's just going to be scent style. This one I think is it's harder to find this one though. And I'm as you can see, I'm low on it. I don't have a backup. I have an aftershave, but that's only really when I'm shaving to use this one. But this one, again, brighter in the opening, more citrus, but definitely that green mossy dry down, just not as sharp as Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. All right, so the fourth fragrance in this list is a little bit harder to find in the United States, but if you're gonna go through eBay, which is where I found it, that is where you're going to get it. Not expensive, it's just gonna take a little bit of a while to get here, and of course the shipping might be higher than normal too. So this is from the House of Miraculum, or Mercurium, however you wanna say it. It is Brutal Classic, the Intense version. So a while back, I did a review on Brutal Classic, just the original Eau de Cologne, and that you could hardly smell. This stuff, however, is awesome for what it is, and I'll spray some here on my hand just to describe it for you guys. So this one really has the citrus opening. It's cheaper, it's obviously a drugstore, but it has the really fresh, soapy smell with the greenness and moss and vetiver in there. And it reminds me of a soapier, lighter Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, like a Polish version, or I shouldn't even really say that, it just comes from Poland, but it really is in that family. The soapiness is what brings me to Paco Rabanne Pour Homme with this one, and it can be had for really nothing. And I have someone I communicate with in Poland, and he says this stuff you can get it anywhere. It's just I wish it were more available here, but the Intense is the one you want to get. The original is very light. I almost didn't smell it at all. But yeah, that soapiness, that citrus soapiness, the green moss and vetiver combo really remind me of Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, but it's the soapiness that drives it home for me on this one. Okay, so the next and final three fragrances, of the 7 are going to be the closest to Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. I've sort of done them in order here. So we've taken a look at the Italian Paco Rabanne. We just looked at the Polish Paco Rabanne. Now let's look at the Irish Paco Rabanne. And this is Patrick from Fragrance of Ireland too. So this is if you're comparing to Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, comparing this to that Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, this is a very smooth. So I was mentioned soapy, this is very soapy. So the greenness in this is from a fern, which is not as sharp or direct or rough as a lot of the herbal notes like the sage and thyme and all that stuff, or the basil. Fern is a sharp green, smoother green, but the soapiness really smooths out, rounds this one out. Very nice fragrance. I had to get it from a particular website. I think it was like a Irish heritage website, but I found it wasn't expensive. It was 40 bucks. I had it. I've used quite a bit of it. I haven't used it in a while, but I've been meaning to make this video, and I knew this is going to be one here too. It's just such a clean, soapy dry down, and the greenness in there, it really is reminiscent of Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. Just again, a really smooth version of it too. Very nice fragrance. Would recommend this anytime. Okay, coming up next, this is the newest of all the fragrances that I've listed in terms of the release date. Not sure about Brut Black. I don't know when that was released. It doesn't list on Fragrantica, but this is from the House of Roger and Goulet, and I'm sure you can guess what it is. I've done an individual review. It's Open Black. Here, I'll show you the box. So Open Black is a flanker to the original Open, which is, I believe, is an 80s fragrance. Open Black came out in 2013, but it's a modern throwback. And there's really nothing modern about it, but the fact that it came out in 2013, and I review a lot of classics from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So this stuff really does a good job at capturing that lavender blast, the herbal stuff, like I mentioned, having the sage and thyme removed from something like Patrick, and they replaced it with fern. This definitely has those notes in there, and it's confirmed that it does, but you can smell it. It's very, very sharp, and the dry down is dark, and it reminds me of Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. It's getting more expensive now. It may have even been discontinued. I think this was 20 bucks at one point, and maybe even less than that, and now I've seen it around in the 40, 45 too. So if you haven't tried this one, make sure to snag a bottle. I probably need to get a new one eventually, but I have so much stuff. But this stuff is really good. It's strong. It's got a cool sprayer, big blast of fragrance there. It's gonna settle in the air. Yeah, and it's dark, and there's a little bit of a funkiness in there too. This is an absolute classic, definitely reminiscent of Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. Masculine, rough, rugged, great scent, super long lasting, and a great bargain. Okay, so the final fragrance on this list, This is the one that I think is closest to Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. It came out just 2 years after Paco Rabanne Pour Homme in 1975, and I'm sure you can guess it. This is Bogart by Jacques Bogart, also known as Bogart's Signature. Not sure if they got that name because of that fountain pen here on the box. This stuff is so similar, but it's darker. And it gets the herbalness, it gets the green mossiness, it gets a little bit of the soapiness, but it's a darker take. It's darker, almost a little bit more richer than Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, where Paco Rabanne will trail off into more soapy. This stays darker and mossier and almost more masculine. Not that Paco Rabanne isn't, it's like, you know, the definition of masculine fragrance, but this takes it to another level, but it's still very close, very similar. It's compared a lot. Also becoming harder to find, unfortunately. Again, at one point was in the 20s. I've seen this going as high as 50 now. I just bought this bottle just in case, and unfortunately, I think the top notes are a little spoiled. Like, I'm talking about it, a hint of it just doesn't smell as the same as the ones that I have, the one that I have left, because I only have one tester left of this. And it smells slightly off, but on skin, after a few minutes, it's Bogart's Signature. But that opening is very special in Bogart's Signature, so that's unfortunate. I looked up the batch code on Check Fresh, and it was like, oh, almost 12 years old too. So maybe the person, it was on Amazon buy too, not an eBay, so I couldn't message them, and you can't do returns, but it's still good. The dry down is, and even though almost minutes after I have it on, it's perfectly fine, but that opening is a little bit off. But either way, it's still the real deal Bogart's Signature. It smells fantastic, very close to Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, and an awesome alternative. All of these are alternatives, but again, Paco Rabanne Pour Homme is still one of the greatest. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this list. That's gonna do it for me for the 7 awesome alternatives to Paco Rabanne Pour Homme that are in the Paco Rabanne Pour Homme family line here too. So let's get another look at that bottle. Please let me know in the comment section what you think of the list. Do you agree with my picks? Do you think that there are other fragrances that are close to Paco Rabanne Pour Homme? Something else I didn't mention, like Worth Pour Homme, don't have it anymore, definitely in that family. Let me know what you think in the comment section. You know I always appreciate all the interaction. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Check out the Instagram page, the TikTok, and definitely check out the Mercari page. Thank you so much for watching and spending time with me today, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.